This is the Meme Team podcast, where we talk about the logic behind virality, because marketing isn't just logic, it's culture. And our podcast decodes both.
All right, let's talk Google first. Last week, Google had their I/O developer conference. They announced a ton of new AI products and features. One, there's Flow, which is a new AI filmmaking tool, Imagen 4, its latest image generator. There's also a new reasoning mode for Gemini called DeepThink. And now they're also allowing customers to feed LLMs their personal data. So think of it as like you can feed it your email so that you can have Google create better personalized smart replies for you. And then finally, they also announced AI mode, which is a chat-like version of search. We can talk about any and all of this, but the thing that I wanted to focus on right now was AI mode, because as far as your marketing strategy, I think that has the biggest impact because that's the most SEO adjacent announcement that they had. What is AI mode? It's like using ChatGPT for your Google search. You ask it whatever query you have, and then it'll give it to you in a more conversational format. And it'll include links and all that good stuff. As marketers, are you making sure that the things you're doing on your website or in your content strategy, are these all things that are helpful to your customers? And can these influence people to find your product, make a buying decision, all those kinds of opportunities? And I would also just think about, how do you get visibility through SEO? Yeah, there's content, but it's also linking strategy or cross-link strategy. It's when you get a lot of links that helps your SEO. But I think that also will help your AI mode, because the more links you get, this is in theory, right? The more links you get, the more reputable you are, right? Or it signals like what kind of authority you have. Therefore, Google should link to you. Another way to think of this is digital PR, right? If you're doing a good PR strategy where people are citing you and linking to you, then theoretically, Google should also be citing you and linking to you, especially in AI mode.
It does, yeah. That does remind me of, the original way that their SEO strategy was supposed to work, right? Where it's like, the more that people are cross-referencing you and cross-posting you, the more views you would get, because your information became the most relevant information that people could find. So I wonder how much of that is kind of changing versus like going back to the way it used to, right? Because recently, most marketers know that SEO strategy has kind of changed a lot in the past 3 to 5 years, because Google has kind of been prioritizing their own links. There's a whole idea of like playing up your stats and like your numbers by making sure that certain types of like your information is what like gets prioritized. That felt more like you had to game the system as opposed to actually putting out the most trusted and like relevant information.
Well, one hope I have in this is that if AI mode is trying to, or any of these LLMs really, if these tools are trying to give people the most useful, the most relevant and helpful links, then my hope is that an actual good like PR strategy or content strategy will be in service to all these things. Like if you're getting good PR, it's because you are telling the right stories, right? You are serving up relevant content or insights. You are worthy of being linked to because the content / things you're putting out there are actually meeting users' needs, right? Or fulfilling their queries.
That's a big hope. I don't know. Like, okay, I feel like right now, ChatGPT kind of owns that space because it feels as if it's a blank slate where that information that's getting pulled in is the most relevant information, right? And I can see why Google is trying to challenge them on that. I saw recently that ChatGPT mobile app usage has gone up to 20 minutes per user per day, which means that it's starting to take Google's lunch in terms of search, right? And that's what I'm seeing more and more, is that people are using ChatGPT as like their primary source of Googling to figure things out. And so when you're faced with Google, which feels like the first maybe like 5 to 7 links are just ads, versus ChatGPT, which doesn't have any of that yet, more people are starting to trust ChatGPT, right? Which I think also shows that like ChatGPT is kind of subsidizing that right now, because they're not making it into an ad network. It won't surprise me when they do kind of shift into that. ChatGPT probably will prioritize you, because if you're getting in early, it's kind of like when Google first started out, right? And they first started doing ads. It was like, if you could get in and be like one of the first companies, it's probably going to work better for you than if you wait to like where we are now.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's only a matter of time before ChatGPT has ads. I think Sam Altman has said a bunch of times that he hates ads, but that to me doesn't mean that he's not going to have them.
Right.
I think that means he's going to make sure that the ads that ChatGPT has are as relevant as possible to the user so that it doesn't feel like an ad.
Yeah, which awesome because like that's what I want. I think honestly this is like one of those things like the idea that people hate marketing or advertising. I don't think that's true. I just think that people hate it when it's not relevant to them or it feels like it's coming out of nowhere. So I think the more that we can get behind relevant stuff that's specifically personalized for me, the better that ad networks are going to work. And that's where I think ChatGPT and AI is going to be able to do that because they have that information. They're starting to see the way that people are asking for things. So I do wonder how Google is going to be able to compete with that because the way that people are sharing with ChatGPT, you know, it's similar to Facebook, right? When it first started doing ads, it was based on all the information that we had input in there voluntarily, right? Like your favorite music, your favorite movies, your friends, people in your circle, all that. So ChatGPT is working on that in a different angle. And I don't know how Google can catch up to that.
I mean, my assumption is that Google knows so much more about us than they would ever be willing to admit. They have all of our emails. They have all of our shopping behaviors. They have all the things that we search for online more than what ChatGPT has. They wouldn't want us to know that.
Well, but that's what's weird. Like when Apple passed the thing saying like, oh, don't, you know, the cookies like stop them from like, you know, and then you had people complaining saying like, why do I get all these like random ads? And it's like, okay, because you're getting like default ads versus ones that are tailored specifically for you. I feel like there are elements that show that, hey, we do know what you're doing and what you're searching for and all that. And we can serve you more custom ads that like do touch on the things that you like versus, you know, the way that they're kind of doing it now where it's like it's only based on what you're specifically searching at that time, which doesn't seem like the best thing for me.
All of these AI tools are trying to help us. However you want to look at it, it's statistically trying to give us the things that it thinks that we want. When you think of it that way, you can start to think about how you can design your marketing strategy so that you are saying the things that are most on brand for you, most relevant to your product. This product is for this type of person to use at this time, and here's how you do it, and here's proof of it. Like, I think if you're doing that kind of marketing, right, where you're addressing all of those things, and also having, you know, the kind of strategy that makes sure that you're getting linked to or mentioned by the right people, brands, entities. You're ultimately giving the internet signals of where and how and why you should be included in the AI overview, AI mode, ChatGPT. So as a marketer today, I think we should be thinking about digital hygiene. Is my website set up correctly? Am I ranking for some of the right keywords? Do my social channels, you know, reflect the current offering, the current brand that we have? And then finally, Google business profiles, because we're seeing now that whenever it makes sense, aka most of the time, AI mode is linking to the Google business profile, not always the brand's website. So if you have like a brick and mortar, you know, or if you have like a local business, it would be wise to make sure that your Google business profile is updated, right? Do you have like your store hours set? Do you have FAQs? Do you have all the information there that people would need when they're going to your storefront?
As an add-on to that, I think another thing to think about is how can you create specific niche content that relates to you and your brand? Because Google is going to try to default back to anything that they can provide, that their services provide, and then bigger brands. So how are you separating yourself out? Like, how are your customers going to find you? Really making sure that your keywords are ones that you're using time and time again, that the content that you're creating is mentioning that that you're doing like your own research on like topics that you think your customers are trying to look for, and then creating content based off that. That's a thing that I've done with a few of my clients is looking up specific topics that people look for when they're looking for the type of product or service that our company provides in order to write about that. And then I definitely think FAQs and like educational content can, serve a greater purpose here, where it's like you're not just introducing people to like your company, but becoming a thought leader in like your space and the industry. Kind of like we talked about last week with Tom Cruise and becoming a promoter of your industry. If you become a thought leader in your space, people are more likely to follow you specifically for that content, to learn from you, and then purchase your service or product.
And quick tip on that, by the way, when you talked about creating content related to how people find you, you can find these in Google Search Console. You can find the keywords that people are searching for when they stumble upon your website. So worth going back to that and looking and seeing what kinds of content opportunities that there are for you and your brand.
Definitely. Okay, on to my topic. I want to talk about the art of category disruption, how Dyson turned vacuum tech into beauty influencing and then back again. So basically, Dyson just announced the Pencil Vac, the thinnest and most lightweight vacuum to exist. It's only going to be about 4 pounds. It has about 60-minute battery life. One of the things that I found most interesting was when they started talking about the engine. So the engine is basically going to mirror the innovation that they've created in their hair dryers and their hair wrap, which is pretty cool to think about it going from being a category disruptor in vacuums and then moving over into beauty products. And then now it's finally going back and using that same technology on their vacuums, which goes to show that a lot of the stuff that you're working on within your company, once you start expanding your product lines, you are able to take those innovations and think about them in a new way. Another thing to think about here is they've learned how to market their product as a lifestyle product that people are willing to pay a lot more for because it comes from their Dyson brand. So it makes women willing to spend $400 or even $600 for hair products. And the only reason why they do that is because Dyson has leveraged their entire like brand around being innovative and like tech forward.
I love that about Dyson as a company. Obviously, vacuums can be for anybody, but I think what's really fascinating is that for their women-focused products, it's not about like, hey, like Dyson cares about women first, and it's all like women in the branding. They're focused on tech. They're inventing things. They're using existing scientific principles, right? And leveraging that in their new products. They're actually truly innovating. And it feels like they're the only consumer tech company that actually acknowledges that women exist in a way that goes beyond, hey, women, this is for you.
Yeah, no, I think that was like one of the biggest reasons why I really like this product, but it was also kind of like a step back when I was like, oh, it's a man kind of talking about this, and he's really kind of mirroring it based off like the Apple product announcements. And after I like kind of thought about it for a second, I was like, wait, why do you need it to be a female CEO talking about a female product? It's not inherently a female product. It's a vacuum. And honestly, like it shouldn't only be women that are vacuuming, right? So I think part of the brilliance behind it is that they are making this like tech forward product that many men would also be willing to use because it's like very cool and like category disrupting. And I think it's also a way that they're able to charge more for their products because it's putting like you said, that scientific and innovative reasoning behind it. And then they're actually like building like new things. It also kind of reminded me about the fact that like Apple's not really inventing like new products right now. Like when's the last time something came out that was like, oh shit, I have to buy that? I mean, the last one was maybe the Vision Pro, but I mean, we talked about that in the Bono episode. It's not really doing very well. And maybe that's because of like the type of product it is. But I think part of what I wanted to point out here is that what Dyson is doing is like bringing up a problem that people face here, women, right? Where it's like one of the main things that they show off in the video is that they've invented this cone technology that is supposed to make it easier for you to vacuum hair, which they learned is like a big thing because they're in like the beauty space and, women with long hair are like, shedding constantly. And they're like, oh, we noticed that there was a problem in our regular vacuum where it's like really hard to get the hair out.
Every vacuum, by the way.
Yeah,
every
exactly.
every belt vacuum.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're like, oh, there's this problem that we're seeing over here. How do we fix it? For our vacuums. And so that's what they went and did. So they created this, new technology that'll help with picking up the hair. But then also they're like, well, we created this like really small engine that is in the hairdryer. why can't we then use that for the vacuum? So the fact that you have this like, cross-pollination happening with like products means that they have a really good team dynamic within their company, that they're able to kind of have these ideas and talk about them and then share across the different product lines that they create. And it's not just like, oh, hair and beauty is siloed over here and then vacuums are siloed over here. Like, no, like let's talk about the innovation across the company and then have all those learnings shared.
Absolutely. I think we should back up for a second and explain the problem with hair and vacuums. What we're referring to is in a traditional belt vacuum, the regular upright heavy vacuum that you push back and forth that you can buy at $50, $40 now. It operates with like there's a belt inside that spins around and it's brushing your carpet as it's vacuuming. But if you have long, thin, weightless things like hair, which we all shed a lot of, right?
Yes.
People, dogs, right? We all shed, but as it's spinning around, it's winding up your hair. And if you have too much hair at some point, it tangles up in the belt. Over time, as you're vacuuming, you might smell a burning and you might be like, what is that? And that burning is probably the belt of your vacuum, which can no longer spin around because it's so tangled in hair. And what you're supposed to do is open it up and cut the hair out and throw it away. But who is doing that with their vacuums? Like no one is like putting aside their belt vacuums for like weekly maintenance. The truly innovative thing about the Dyson vacuum, it leverages something. I actually know this off the top of my head. I'm so excited about it. It leverages the principle of the Coanda effect. It's this aerodynamic phenomenon where when the air is propelled at the right speed and the right pressure, whatever is near it adheres to an adjacent surface. So at the right speed of a vacuum, the thing in question, which in this case is hair, adheres to a surface and it could spin around. This is how the Dyson Airwrap works, the hair product, the $600 hair blow drying, heat styling tools. This spinny thing that when you put it near your hair naturally wraps around it and it adheres to it. And so as it's drying, it's styling your hair. And with the case of this vacuum, that's what it's doing. It has this conical thing that spins that is adhering to the hair on your carpet, but the conical device inside has it such that the hair will ultimately move off to the side and slide off the cone and then vacuum it up again. And that's why it doesn't get tangled. It's incredible.
That is amazing. Who thought you were going to get a science lesson in your meme team podcast?
I take my hair care products so seriously.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah. So I think another thing I want to call out here, because the way that you were talking about that made me realize the brilliance behind their naming strategy. So the fact that they named the Airwrap because it wraps around, the conical shape of the hairdryer is brilliant because it tells you exactly what it is. And there's no need to be clever with the name. Same here with the pencil vac, right? They're calling it that because they want to call out how thin it actually is going to be. And sure enough, like when you look at it, it's like really small, really thin. One of the concerns I have is that it's very light and it's very colorful. So my kid is definitely going to want to play with it. And it has like lasers at the end of like green light to show you the things that you're going to be picking up. But it's basically a very fun, and obviously it's not a toy, but it's just a very brightly colored contraption that my kid is definitely going to want to play with. So that would be my only commentary to them is like, did they think about kids being able to use this?
But maybe they did. And like, maybe that's a good thing then, that the battery life is only 60 minutes. Because maybe then you can hand it off to your kid and be like, great, you vacuum. And then they will. And then after like an hour, the device is going to die anyway.
That is true. I mean, if you think about it, one of the first chores that they try to get kids to do is like sweeping and like vacuuming. They have a little mini vacuum cleaner that they sell for little kids. And I've wanted to buy it because it works and it's supposed to help you, get your kids into like cleaning so that they can like help you and participate with you, which is really, really fun.
Yeah. Maybe we all need the pencil vac. It's for our children.
One other thing I want to talk about here is the fact that Dyson went full tilt into beauty tech And I think that deserves to be called out because there isn't much innovation happening in a lot of like female centric industries because it's like, oh, well, we already created a product that basically works, you know? And so you just kind of keep creating that type of product. Whereas here, they took what was working for them, their innovation that they were creating in the vacuum, thought about, well, what other things might we be able to do it, landed on like hair care after, you know, they also do like hand dryers and stuff. So they were already working on dryer technology. So they moved into the hair care space and have now innovated so much that they're able to, you know, turn it back into the vacuum again. I know that for me, one of the things I think about is like, we're missing out on so many companies creating innovative products because they don't want to like dive into female centric products because maybe they feel, oh, you know, that's for women. We don't understand the problem. Or like, you know, we're mostly focused on like science and innovation. And so I think we're missing out on a lot of that. Like one thing here that I just thought about is another thing that can use good suction technology is like breast pumps. Like think about if Dyson were to create a breast pump that works like this, where it adheres to your breast and isn't like tugging on it the way a lot of like painful breast pumps are. But like, if you think about like what sorts of innovations that you're currently working on, you could like shift into as a different vertical. It could help you kind of expand into different markets that might not have been, you know, the ones that you intended, but that end up being very lucrative for you, right?
Yeah.
Because like the hair products that they now sell, like I said, can be from like, you know, $400 to like $600. So it's created new premium price points in previously stagnant markets that, you know, hadn't seen innovation before. So something to think about there for like companies that, you know, have a specific technology or innovation that they've created and are trying to find a new vertical to look at.
Totally. Or like think of it as like what I think we've said this perhaps a number of times on this show already, but we'll say it again, is think of the problems you can solve for your customers and how you can solve them. When we talk about Dyson having, you know, women-focused products, I feel like there's an element of a self-consciousness that we have in highlighting it because it feels like, oh, it feels like this doesn't matter. When that's also an inherently misogynistic view of the problem itself. Hair care affects about half the population multiple times a day. So yeah, it's a problem worth solving. I'm not saying this is the key to world peace. That's not even it, right? It's just an issue of like, think of the problems that exist. How can you solve them? Well, hair is one of them, right? If you think of hair care as a problem to be solved once or twice a day, every single day for the rest of someone's life, then you could see that as like, oh, that's actually a massive market opportunity because it is. Yeah.
Also, based on that calculation alone, you see why women are willing to spend $400 and $600 on a tool that does this. Because, I mean, if you're not doing that, then you're probably, you know, trying to do blowouts. And blowouts can be like $100 to like $300 each time that you do it, right? So now I'm telling you that a product does that through this like innovative technology. Makes total sense why women are willing to spend that amount of money for this product.
That was exactly the calculation I had when I bought my Dyson Airwrap. The hair dryer is about $400. The Dyson Airwrap, which has multiple attachments, including a hair dryer, is $600. It's very expensive. Yeah. However, when I bought mine, like one, like it was like a birthday present to myself. But also my thought was, well, I like getting my hair blown out at a salon. It's expensive. The best price I can find is $60 for an hour-long basic wash, dry, blow dry, and curl. I'm obviously not doing that often, right? Like I save that for special occasions. Right. If I could, I would do it once a week, right? If I could. So thinking of it as like, just let's stick with $60 per session as a price point, then the Dyson Airwrap is paid for after using it 10 times, you know? And like, well, I wash my hair a couple times a week, and I now know that going to sleep with wet hair is actually bad for your hair because it's prone to breakage, could develop mold. It's a whole other thing. So you do want to go to bed with dry hair. It's a big problem. So thank you, Dyson. This podcast one day will be sponsored by you. That day's not today. But like that was when I was like, okay, That's how I can justify this. So now when I use it, that replaces my $60 blowout.
There you go. Yeah. I know. I've been this close to buying it. But yeah, that was another thing here where it's like it's generated billions of TikTok views of like user generated content because, you know, women kind of want to share how great their hair looks afterwards. So whatever they're doing, Dyson is killing it.
All right, let's move on.
Let's talk about someone who's not killing it.
On that happy note, which we will kill now. Did you know that the American Music Awards were this week?
It did not.
So here it is, friends. We talk about the logic behind virality, but also the logic behind what does not go viral. So in this case,
And
it's the
presumably
American
something
Music
that
Awards.
should have gone viral.
Should have. And it should have gone viral because the American Music Awards had been on a 2-year hiatus. So
What?
and I think it was
I didn't even know that.
after the pandemic, they took a hiatus, but they did have a 50th anniversary special last fall in October 2024. So this was the first award show in a couple years. And what's kind of interesting is that winners are determined by a poll of the public and fans who vote through their website. So it's kind of a People's Choice Awards.
Yeah, which that is the thing already, right?
It's like the People's Choice Awards, except you didn't watch it or you didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Oh, poor AMAs. But I don't think we're the only ones who didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people did not attend. Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish were not there, even though they were some of the most nominated and winningest artists.
So they were nominated this year and they didn't go?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And like Billie Eilish won for Birds of a Feather. She did
Sure.
her acceptance speech through like a video link because she's in Europe. Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton did not attend. And why am I calling it out? Because they performed. They did pre-recorded performances. So
That's wild.
they did that.
Like, why would you even? Probably because they were told that, hey, you can pre-record. And they're like, okay.
Right? Like, so even they couldn't be bothered to attend their own performance.
Wait, so then who did go? Because
Who was there?
who was there?
Well, it was hosted by Jennifer Lopez, and she was there, and she
Oh, wow.
performed. Oh, she sang a little bit and did a dance medley of
That's
like
Jennifer Lopez.
some
She
of the
doesn't
like,
really
pop
sing,
hits. Yeah.
It's not what she's known for. She's a dancer.
She's a dancer. She's great. She's a great
Yeah.
dancer.
I mean, she's got hits. She's got gems, bops, as they call them.
She does. Who else was there? Janet Jackson was there, and she performed, and she killed it. I mean, it's Janet Jackson.
Sure.
Benson Boone, Gloria Estefan, Renee Rapp. She did her first like award show performance. So some
So
people
did
went.
any of these artists say that they were going to be there? Were they marketing themselves at this performance? Because, like, swear, you're telling me that this award show is happening and it happened last night and I didn't even know or like hear about it.
Here's the thing that stood out to me. I saw a lot of like takes on it. I saw a lot of people talking about Jennifer Lopez's performance. I saw a lot of people talking about Janet Jackson's performance. But as I was going through the social feeds, I didn't see anything viral, which I think is really interesting. Like there wasn't like a 10,000 liked tweet about Janet Jackson's performance. It was like, she did great. And then like 300 likes or whatever it was at the time. Or
Yeah.
even like people, even the inevitable Jennifer Lopez haters. None of that was like viral. It was just like a handful of like
Yeah.
niche people talked about it online.
Yeah, that's interesting because, you know, the JLo haters are out there and there's a lot of them. So
There's a lot of them.
they go viral just hating on her.
Yeah.
So the fact that even that didn't warrant a response is.
So one, I didn't even know the American Music Awards were at the time of this recording, like they were last night. But I saw a couple people talking about Jennifer Lopez's performance because she like kissed her dancers. It was like part of the routine where it was like, oh, she's trying to be like Madonna, Britney, and Christina. A lot of like the sentiment that I was seeing that wasn't viral, but people were saying it was just like, what is this? Like, this is so random. Who asked for this? This is so awkward. And this is cringe. I was like, is it? She's a good dancer. So I looked it up and I watched it and was like, I mean, she is a good dancer. Jennifer Lopez is a great performer.
Yeah.
So I didn't think it was like cringe, but then I saw like, well, no, this is in the context of the American Music Awards. And so she was doing a dance medley to some of the most popular songs of the year. So it's not random. Was it my
Mhm.
favorite thing ever? Well, no, but that doesn't mean that it's not good. It's just, you know. So I thought that was an overall like strange sentiment that I saw, and maybe that explains why it wasn't viral necessarily. I think clearly this is a miss by the American Music Awards, like that association. Maybe the people that they honored, they should have tried to make sure that they came. What
Yeah.
does it say that the people who are the most popular and that they actually won and were the most recognized couldn't even be bothered to come? Like maybe that alone is a sign that perhaps this awards show needs to be retired. Like if the most popular, most honored, most winningest people couldn't even come, like
It means they didn't take it seriously and they don't take the award itself seriously.
yeah, which is a bummer because it's also fan driven, supposedly, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's super interesting. Something that I'm just even thinking about is when they brought back the Golden Globes, right? So similar, they had like a hiatus because it didn't fit the times and there was like a couple of scandals that happened. So they shut it down. And I think it's similar about like 2 years. And then they brought it back and people were like, oh, is anyone even going to show up? But then, people did and they turned it around because they had, brought in a wider voting block of like people that were a little bit more trusted within the industry. And the people that showed up were still like the same movie stars. But I think what they kind of did was they were very open about like the changes that they were making that had, gotten them canceled in the first place, So people were like, okay, maybe we're willing to give it a chance to do this. And then you had obviously, the Hollywood stars that like showed up that are going to be bringing that sort of attention anyway. So here, I think they, failed 2 times over. One, maybe Jennifer Lopez wasn't the right person to be hosting because she doesn't have enough of a following and like goodwill for people to want to like watch her host. She's done a couple projects that haven't really done well in the past, few years. She had the documentary and then the movie, and actually last year, right? She was trying to go on tour and that like ended up being canceled because she couldn't sell enough tickets. Clearly that wasn't the right like move. And then also, people didn't show up. And like what you said about the Gwen Stefani Blake Shelton show, like they didn't even like do it live. So like the thing that you're saying people are going to do aren't even there. Like one of the TikToks that I saw was a girl filming herself then turning to like show the stage, and it's just a big screen of like Gwen Stefani performing, and she's saying they're not even here. That's not the type of content that you want to be creating for your show. I think that one went viral because I didn't even know this was happening until I got that TikTok shared into my space.
Yeah. Well, there's the other lesson is like they chose the wrong host. If you're gonna have a host of a thing, make sure that host has fans.
Yeah.
and here's what I'll say is I am low key a Jennifer Lopez fan. I am. I think she's incredibly talented. I like her movies. I like her older songs. I think she's an amazing dancer.
Mm-hmm.
I watched her documentary. I watched.
Wow, you're a real hardcore fan.
But here's what she said in her documentary. She knows she doesn't have fans. The documentary that she did was about her movie. The movie called The Greatest Love Story Never Told, but she was telling it.
Yeah. Oh, the one with Ben Affleck?
So yeah. But he wasn't even in the movie. She had like an actor in the movie. So the documentary was about that movie, which was like about, I guess, their love story, but also her life leading up to it. And like it was like an autobiographical kind of movie. And so the documentary was about the making of that movie. And so in that documentary, she's even saying like, I know, like, no one's clamoring for the next J-Lo record. I know that. And I'm like, but yet here you are. Like, it was wild to me to watch that documentary because on one hand, she very much acknowledged, yeah, I know that I don't have anyone clamoring for my music. And then for the movie, she like has her Rolodex of celebrity friends that she's calling to be in it. And they're all declining. And she knows they're all declining. And there's a point in which she finally talks to Jane Fonda to be in it. Jane Fonda didn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But they talk about it, and everyone knows Jane Fonda's a real one. Mm-hmm. And this especially solidifies that. She talks to J-Lo, and she says, like, I don't think you should be doing this movie. like straight up with her. And she's like, there are some things you can keep to yourself, and this seems like one of those things. And I'm not understanding why you want this all to be out there. Like, I support you and I'm your friend, and this is why I'm telling you this. And I was like, dang, that's a good friend.
Right?
And she ended
That's
up
wild.
being in the movie.
Oh, she did. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, right? That's kind of
Yeah,
amazing.
I mean, you got to support where you can, even though you don't agree sometimes.
Like, I was like, wow, what a good friend.
Yeah.
But like, even Ben Affleck in the documentary, like, he has a couple of talking heads and he's in it. And there's a point where he's addressing the whole greatest love story never told, and he's like, yeah, but you're telling it. So like, here it is.
oh my God. Yeah, that's another thing, huh?
Yeah. Sorry, we digressed. But my point,
that's
really broadly, was a host is supposed to, for better or for worse, right, drive attendance in some way. She even had the fans who would be willing to tune in for free.
So for me, there's the whole idea that there's Jennifer Lopez, the actress, and then there's Jennifer Lopez, the singer. I'm a fan of the actress. I loved her in Hustlers. I love all her like rom-coms, even like the ones that aren't that great. So it is like interesting to me because it's like clearly she can be in like movies and she's a good actress. It's just that she wanted to do this like passion project for so long. But like, hey, Francis Ford Coppola just, came out with his, huge like movie that he paid for and got financed. So maybe JLo deserves some prop for getting Amazon to pay for her for her movie instead of her having to sell her own business in order to fund it.
She does, although she spent like $30 million up front first to make it all happen.
It's not 100 billion.
yeah, right. I mean, still, I respect her hustle.
Yeah, I mean, I respect
that. But you know what? American Music Awards should not have had her host. But then also, like, the American Music Awards should have had people in the show who actually cared about it. Performers who performed didn't even attend. People who were honored didn't even attend. So maybe one lesson is know when you're done, but maybe the better takeaway is number 2 is like, go where people want to go, right? Go where people already are. Create moments where people already care.
Yeah, one takeaway from me. Who is this award show for? You have the Grammys, you have the VMAs, you have the People's Choice Awards. Like, the fact that they have Janet Jackson and Benson Boone, like that, who are you trying to attract? Like the Janet Jackson fans or like the Benson Boone fans, right? Like the Grammys and the VMAs, I feel like they've kind of bisected, right? Like the Grammys are more like established players, like the ones who have been around for a while, whereas the VMAs are more like who are the up and coming artists with the mixture of some of like those older bands as well. So you have to be able to, like, if you're going to do a mix, like make it a mix that like makes sense, right? I know like the Grammys, was it this year or last year, combined 2 different types of acts, like old and young and like rap and country, and like kind of mix it up a little bit to kind of give more people reasons to like watch the show. I think another one was like that they made it up all about like the live music that they were playing. So made it less about like the actual awards and made it about who's playing there, right?
Yeah. All right. Should we roll into our last topic?
Yeah, so I want to talk about Red Lobster and their nostalgia marketing with their 1999 3-course meal. Basically, what they did is they brought in Joey Fatone of NSYNC fame to talk about how 1999 is cool again. It's a really funny bit of him speaking to like Gen Zer and is like, oh, back in 1999, I used to be somewhat of a thing. So it was like a really funny and like humorous way to kind of bring back, the good sentiment that people had about like Red Lobster back in the day, and then trying to like bring it up to like where they are now. So I feel like they're very self-aware here. They are kind of dipping into that millennial nostalgia to not be seen as cringe, but then also being like, you know what, we kind of are going to own it. We're going to go back to like that pricing that like worked for us, and we're going to use nostalgia to bring us back front and center with people. You'll remember that this is after they filed bankruptcy in 2020, and then last year they hired a new CEO from Goldman Sachs who is, trying to turn it around. And that's one of the other ads I saw where, he's talking about what they're doing now at like Red Lobster. And one of the focuses that they do is on the Cheddar Bay Biscuit.
Yum.
Yeah, because, they recognize that that's like the best thing they have going for them. And so they're really, diving into that, which I think is really smart of them.
Yeah, it totally is too. Everyone still knows and loves the Cheddar Bay Biscuits. I actually went to like a small like party a couple weeks ago where somebody made cheddar biscuits, and like everyone at the party was like, did you make the Red Lobster Cheddar Bay Biscuits? Like we were all very excited, and like some of us took some home.
That's amazing. Yeah. So I think it's really smart to target millennials who saw Red Lobster as like the fancy restaurant that you went to in the 90s. I admit I was one of those millennials. Like that was always like the birthday restaurant. So the fact that they're really, going into that and, bringing in a millennial artist and kind of, making it cheeky is very relatable. So I love that they're, doing that. I think one of the things too is this nostalgia kind of allows them to use comfort food and the fact that people want lower prices, price points as a really good way to like reframe the fact that they went through the bankruptcy and that they're, kind of readjusting their strategy overall. So I think it's like really smart to kind of like go from being, obviously this fancy restaurant to have it be like a comfort food go-to.
Interesting. I think also it's just where this works for me is everything is so expensive nowadays, especially food. You go to the grocery, eggs are still like $10 for the carton, so that when you go out to eat nowadays, it's like going out to eat has to be its own specific kind of experience. And in this case, it's Red Lobster. It's $20. Get to relive some like past memories, but also that comfort of like, I love those biscuits. It's $20. Let's just go. And not even trying to be like, this is a really fancy place, right? I think the current prices of things, it just has me rethinking when I go out to buy food. Because I usually cook at home whenever I can. But now when I go out to eat, I'm like, everything is expensive all the time. So if I'm going to spend like a lot of money in food, for instance, then it's like, well, then I'd rather just kind of save up for the really, truly special occasions and go to like an actually really nice restaurant. Or it's going to be like dopamine hit of comfort food, whatever. It's $20 a person. Let's just do it.
Yeah. No, I agree. Also, another thing to think about is so many people have started, defaulting to door dashing. So think about how much less expensive this is when you're saying it's going to be a $20 meal from Red Lobster, which already is like, oh, seafood's fancy, So another smart play there, because I think a lot of people are feeling price sensitive these days. So this gives them another option. And the fact that they're using Joy Fatone and the whole millennial nostalgia, I think also kind of couches the fact that it's like, oh, it's $19.99, which is, it's cheap, but it doesn't make you feel like it's cheap, right? Because nobody wants to go to a place that like feels cheap.
Right. No, totally. Yeah. I don't hear that and think like, oh, this is like a cheap meal. It's just, that sounds reasonable. And this is a fun experience.
Right. So maybe we'll all start going to Red Lobster like we used to back in the 90s.
We will.
Awesome.
Yeah, let's wrap this up in some takeaways. All right, going back to Google I/O. For me, the big takeaway is how can you influence your customers or your would-be customers where they already are or how they're already thinking, right? Like how can you create the content that is most helpful to them while also in line with your brand? How can you influence the people who would be talking about your brand, aka journalists, PR, with the ultimate goal of landing in the AI overview?
The takeaway for me there is content creation is not dead, especially if you can get into like really niche topics about whatever industry you're in. The more specific you can get, the more that people will be looking for that sort of stuff anyway. And upside here is that if it starts going popular on Google, it'll probably also get picked up by ChatGPT. So it'll help you twofold there. Then for Dyson, the main thing for me is the category disruption, how being the best at one thing can help you be the best at another thing if you're using the innovation that separates you in the one industry in the other one, right? So the beauty of what Dyson did here was to take their innovation and think about what other verticals it could work for, especially one that doesn't get that much attention, which is women's product or hair care. They were very smart to not let the current price points hold them back in terms of how they were marketing and placing their product, right? They made it, elevated their brand of like hair care products by saying like, this is a Dyson product with Dyson innovation and technologies, and that's what you're paying for. And that's clearly shown that like women are willing to pay that amount for something that they know is going to actually work for them.
And then for the American Music Awards, if you're gonna have a product, make sure all the people who are involved in the product, as in the people who are creating it and marketing it, actually care about it too. In this case, you had performers who didn't perform, winners who didn't attend, hosts who doesn't have a strong fan base, you know, especially something experience driven. It needs to be driven by the people who care about it.
Yeah. Think about what your audience is and, you know, target that audience. The fact that they came back after 2 years, like, did they work on nothing in those 2 years, you know? And then for Red Lobster, think about where your customer is at right now. So many people are price conscious, and Red Lobster is using that to their advantage, but then couching it in a fun, humorous way by relating it back to like the 90s and using a celebrity to help spread that message.
Totally. I mean, they are helping us to feel seen in a very real way. That's also another way to look at it too.
Awesome. So that's our episode for today. Thanks for listening to the Meme Team podcast. You can follow me at Sonia Baschez on Twitter and LinkedIn, or check out my website, bentgrowth.co.
And you can follow me at Amanda Nat on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Threads. And you could find my newsletter at amandanat.com.
Awesome. Bye.